Let's talk a little bit about this story. What's happening here? Again, it's set in Nagasaki, Japan, the beginning of the 19th century. The main character is Madame Butterfly, but that's actually the American name. The Japanese name is Cho-Cho-san.
I'm the producer and I'm also the founder of Kuala Lumpur City Opera. When I first started the Sing and Travel People, it was kind of on my own. Then I felt that, well, it's not easy, probably need some help. So that's why I asked Sun Yun to join me. And then when we started KLCO, it was both of us who are the directors and founders of the company.
I'm the executive producer of Kuala Lumpur City Opera. And Kuala Lumpur City Opera, we first started off as the Eat, Sing and Travel People. So it was established in 2012, and subsequently we have incorporated Kuala Lumpur City Opera in the year of 2015. We wanted to do something different, which is unlike any other productions who have been just doing musical. So we decided, why don't we just do opera, because the music are so beautiful, the drama, the tragic, everything is inside there. If you look into the composition of opera, right, it actually has a very good structure of music, the storyline, the dramatization, then the learning and the education, the messages inside an opera. And it's not very different from musical theatre.
For me, to be able to interpret or bring to life this opera and putting together not only the music, where the orchestra, you have the orchestra and the musician, you have the conductor, but the singers, singing different roles, and then putting it on stage with the sets and settings, and then making it magical with the lights and everything else. So for me, creating things like that really gives me motivation.
Is unique, is different. I've sung this role many times. This is the fourth time I'm singing this opera and this role, although with different companies and with different cast members throughout the years. So every time I revisit it, it's always fresh, it's always interesting, you learn new things. Every production has its own challenges, so even though you've sung the role many times, there's always something new to discover, whether in terms of music characterization or it deepens your appreciation for the work.
No, you look at him, he look at you, okay, and then and you can touch that. Why I need to talk to you, okay? Okay.
conductor, and of course that's the first thing. Everybody should be together. Again. Little accent will help. It's different from section to section, from singer to singer, from part to part. Some they like it slower, some like it faster. Sometimes I play around with the tempos, with the accelerandos, with getting faster, getting slower, and all of that. No, that was fast. Da 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 tick da da. Yeah, I think I'm pushing too much. Tick da 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 tick da da. Can we go? 2 before 41. 2 before 41.
We have so many of our talented singers who actually study vocal, but unfortunately when they return back to Malaysia, they don't have the chance to appear in a leading role in an opera. So Kuala Lumpur City Opera is the greatest platform for a Malaysian local talent to have a lead role.
Good evening to everyone present here tonight. My name is Brian and I will be your host for tonight. On behalf of the JPO family, we'd like to extend a warm welcome to everyone tuning in for tonight's broadcast. We hope that everyone is doing well and staying safe indoors. A friendly reminder to maintain good hygiene at all times and maintain social distancing when heading out. As we'd like to continue improving your experience with us, please help us achieve this by completing the poll that will be published during this broadcast. If you have any questions that you'd like to ask, please feel free to type them out in the Q&A section down below or in the chat within the YouTube live stream. To anyone who is interested in sharing tonight's broadcast, a live feed is being shared on the JPO YouTube channel. A recording of the webinar will also be uploaded onto the channel. Tonight's seminar features Mr. Danny Chen with his topic being Behind the Scenes of a Western Opera Production. As our JPO family attendees are mostly students ranging from primary school to college, their parents and their teachers, the sharing of knowledge and advice you have for all of us tonight is invaluable and greatly appreciated. The JPO is very honored to have Danny join in as our guest for tonight. I hope that you'll all join me in giving him a warm welcome. Mr. Danny Chen is the founder and producer of the KL City Opera, which has formerly been known as Eat, Sing and Travel People. Despite the fact that he has had no formal music training, he is an avid lover of the opera and is always enthusiastic about facilitating productions. He had also served as the host for Malaysia Airlines vlog, MH48 Hours, back in 2013. The KLCO was founded back in 2012 and had been officially incorporated in October 2015. It now has a roster of 30 principal singers and a chorus of 55 members. It also has connections with approximately 30 musicians who are frequently featured in their productions. Their productions include well-known repertoires such as Madama Butterfly, Hansel and Gretel, as well as Carmen, but they have also performed comedic operas such as La Elixir de Amore, which translates to The Elixir of Love. Additionally, the KLCO has received 4 Boh Cameroonian Kakiseni Arts Awards, organized by the Boh Tea Corporation in the past decade for their productions. So without further ado, once again, a very good evening to Mr. Danny Chen. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Good evening, Brian. Thank you for having me.
Good evening, Danny. Thanks for joining us. So to start off tonight's interview, what can you tell us about the video that we were just watching?
Yes, the video was produced by a group of students for their final year assignment, and they are from the Xiamen University. And in fact, the piece of work actually won them the best documentary film in their university awards. And in fact, that particular video is, highlighting behind the scene events of our production, Madama Butterfly. A production which we are very proud of, because that production actually also won 2 Bo Cameronian Awards for Best Music Direction as well as Best Sound Design. Bo Cameronian Awards is one of the only few arts awards that artists like us are very proud of, because it really recognizes our effort, and basically they recognize work in the music theater category, in dance, in theater, and music. And so we are very proud, to be nominated. And in fact, we were nominated for 6 categories, but we won 2. Yeah, so that's really great.
All right. Tell us more about your role with the opera.
Well, I'm the founder of Kuala Lumpur City Opera, together with my partner in crime, Mr. Ho Sun Yun. Actually, both of us actually started singing in a choir. We were with the Selangor Philharmonic choir, and one fine day, I think back in 2003, we were asked to audition for a production. Okay, and at that time, the production was Turandot by Puccini. And we didn't know it was an opera, but we went for it anyway. And so we had to learn Italian, and then we realized, wow, this is actually very difficult. And in fact, if you know the opera Turandot, the chorus opens the opera, and they have a lot of things to sing. So it was an amazing experience for us. And actually, that's my first taste of opera. And thereafter, in the following year, I also participated in the Carmen production. And so that's how I started. And so with Cal City Opera, besides being the founder, I'm also the director of the company, and I also play the role of producer. And actually, I do everything else, including sweeping the floor, making sure that we have supplies in the studio, scheduling, and everything else. So between myself and Sun Yun, we actually do almost everything. Yeah.
All right. So who or what influenced you when you were younger?
Well, I guess definitely my father, because my father likes music. He plays the guitar, and then he likes to sing when we're in the car, when we're traveling and all that. But I must say, influencing me to get into opera was really that first production of Turandot. Yeah, because at that time I know about choral singing, I know about musical theater, but it was a new discovery for me, to finally see something really challenging, okay? Because in an opera production, you have to learn a different language, yeah? And for Turandot, it was Italian. And like I said, we opened the show and we had to sing really, really fast, and you have to make sure that you're singing the right thing, And then, and it's a pretty long opera, and we also have to be on stage playing different roles, besides singing as the people of Peking or Beijing at the time in that opera. We had to play the wise man, we have to play the servant, we have to play different kind of roles. So it was an amazing experience for me. And plus we got to perform the show 3 days in KL and then another 3 days in Penang. Yeah, so it was a touring production. Yes.
All right. Well, thanks for sharing how you got into all this to your opera business as well. So yeah. Mm-hmm. So what significant difference is there between the preparation of a Western opera as opposed to other forms of musical theatres?
I would say, as you know, opera singers, they sing unamplified. Okay, so we, as opposed to musical theater performers, normally they have a clip mic or they have a head mic, and so they are amplified. And so in terms of the energy level, I think it is a little bit different. For an opera singer, they need to be really mindful of their projection. They need to be mindful of their diction. They need to be, able to, at the same time, move gracefully on stage. And at the same time delivering their story, right? I think that's technically one of the major difference. But other than that, I would say, especially for Cal City Opera, what we do is we actually rehearse a lot with our singers. we prepare them musically. So we have a phase of like a few months, 2 to 3 months, just to do music rehearsals. And we have our vocal director, Miss Cecilia Yap. She's an amazing soprano, and she is also an amazing teacher. And so she helps the singers prepare for the roles. And she always tells us she needs to polish their singing so that, in the end, what is delivered on stage is a high quality performance.
All right.
Yeah.
So before we move on, I would just like to remind our audience that if you have any questions that you'd like to ask, please feel free to type them out in the Q&A section for Zoom or in the chat for YouTube Live. So moving on. So as vocalists do face more restrictions compared to instrumentalists, such as range, their breath, and other things, what are the main challenges that you have experienced, and how do you overcome these challenges during your productions?
Well, I think one of the key challenges is diction, because opera are all sung in different languages, Italian, French, German, Russian, So all of us are Malaysian, so we are not native speakers, and so oftentimes that is the one that we struggle a lot with. In fact, sometimes we actually engage some help. In fact, I remember when we did a production with the MPO, we did a Russian repertoire of Rachmaninoff, and so we actually got a friend who's a Russian, and she came and she actually coached our chorus, in terms of the Russian diction. And for Cecilia, she's very well versed with Italian. She speaks Italian, and so that helps a lot because most of our opera productions are in Italian. And we also have chorus members who are, foreigner. Like we have a lady who is an expat wife, and so she has been in Malaysia for like 20 years. So whenever we do a French production, then we get her to help. And so the whole process, we could actually do a few things. One, we actually record, for instance, a character, each of the role, we record their line in pronunciation in the particular language. And then we actually send those recording to them so that when they are going through the music and as they're learning their text, they actually refer to the pronunciation. Yeah. I think most of the time in opera, the composers, the way they write, and the way they collaborate with the librettists, it's all in the music anyway. But still, sometimes you need to understand or know how to pronounce the foreign language well, so that it is in sync, in what you are trying to deliver in the story. Yeah. I guess other than that, the other challenge I would say is, opera, in terms of the story, most of the time is quite tragic. Of course, we have happy operas as well, like the one we just did recently, the Zauberflöte, the Magic Flute. That's a happy one, a family one. But most of the opera productions, like Butterfly, La Traviata, and all that, we have a kind of like a sad ending. And so for the singers, it's a challenge to actually ensure that they're singing well, but at the same time they have to convey the emotions, and conveying the emotions is not just in the singing and in the voice, but sometimes they have to act, and they have to actually be physically fit to be able to deliver what they're supposed to sing while they're lying on the floor, or they're rolling on the ground, or they are standing on the chair, or something like that. So I think for the vocalist is definitely challenging, in the sense that you have to kind of multitask. You have to be able to do a few things at the same time and to look flawless, in what you're doing. Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely seems like there's a lot that needs to go into it. Like you mentioned, conveying the emotions through acting and such as well. So how about the orchestra though? Do you guys have like your own permanent, resident orchestra instrumentalists, or do you rely on the 30 people that you call in?
Well, we have a kind of a roster of regular people that we call in. Most of them are really talented musicians. They either are already playing with as a principal in the orchestra, or they are with the MPYO. And so we go through a process of recruiting them, and then as they play with us, we try to keep them each time. So we always call back the same musicians so that they are more familiar. You know, an opera production can be as long as 2.5 hours. Okay, and you have a break maybe in between for 20 minutes, you know, and then you play. You know, imagine you're in the string section and you're playing for 2.5 hours, or at least an hour plus, you know, without any break. It's really very tiring. And I remember most of the orchestra members used to tell me that, say, hey, please don't do the show like back to back 3 days in a row because my arms are going to drop. You know, so yeah, it is challenging. And so we, as mentioned, we try to also have a mix of younger and older musicians. Yeah, so normally for them, the rehearsal process is also pretty short. Yeah, because we do about 5 rehearsals, and the first 2 is normally just the string section, just to get everyone together in terms of bowing and everything. And then after that, then we have tutti rehearsals. So after the 5th rehearsal, then we already have the Sitzprobe. Yeah, Sitzprobe is where the musicians and the singers and the chorus all come together in a room, and we meet for the first time and we sing together. Yeah, the entire, and run through the entire opera. Yeah, and then after that we bump in already. So in terms of timing, they probably come in like a month before the actual show, and then they have about 4 or 5 rehearsals. Then they sing together with the rest of the company, and then we bump into the theater, and then we have 2 dress rehearsals, or 1, depending on whether we have a double cast. Like the last production, we have 2 casts, and so the orchestra have to play 2 times, 2 dress rehearsals. Then sometimes we have a day break, and then that's it. We go into the show. Yeah, so it is kind of taxing, I would say, for the orchestra. For the 1 week or production week is extremely tiring, and it's all about endurance. And of course, you know, being an orchestra, your focus has to be like 200%. You know, you have to have your eyes at the conductor, and you have to, because opera, you know, it really very unpredictable, you know, because sometimes we have to wait for the cue from the singers on stage. You know, when they do something, and then the conductor would then have to cue the whole orchestra in, and ensuring that the whole orchestra is still together, you know. So yeah, it is extremely challenging. Yeah.
All right. How about prop preparation, props and like costume preparation? How does that fit into all this?
Yeah, that's a very fun part of the production, I must say. We normally plan a production at least a year in advance. Yeah. Sometimes we try to plan further, like, you know, what is the opera we're going to do in 2 years' time and things like that. We just put a placeholder. And then for the production people, like costume designers, stage designers, set designers, all that, they come in probably about 6 months to 9 months before the production. Why? Because it depends on the stage director. Normally, the stage director and myself as producers, we will discuss how we will want the production to be like. You know, sometimes we take the liberty, you know, like not to follow exactly as per the score and set it as per the same, you know, period. So sometimes we kind of adjust that a little bit, and so that affects the entire, you know, set design and also costume. And what I normally do first is that after discussion with the stage director, I will come up with a concept. You know, I'll come up with a concept board, or actually it's in PowerPoint. Yeah, so I'll come up with a concept, and then with reference and pictures and things like that. Then I will send it to our costume designer, our makeup designer, and then they will then look at it, and then they will come back to me and tell me what they will propose. Yeah, so in fact, costume designer will come in probably about a month before the actual show to do a fitting. Yeah, so she would have already prepared all the different costumes for every character, including the chorus. And you know, we have a chorus of like at times 45 to 50 people, right? And so it's a lot of people to dress, you know. And so she has to kind of figure all that out, and then they do a fitting and ensuring that the costumes all fit. and then and we actually don't really see the final costume until the week of the production. Yeah, because she will also still fine tune or tweak certain things or add certain things, you know. So in the end, it's always I would say a pleasant surprise. You know, we always see, wow, you know, this is how the costume look like. It's amazing, you know, and things like that. Yeah. So it's all a lot of fun.
All right. So, so just an estimate, like how many people would you say work behind the scenes other than the cast?
Typically for our productions, we can have more than about 110 to 120 people, and about 20 people behind the scene. We have a stage manager, and then normally he or she would have a assistant stage manager. Then we have the costume designer and the costume designer. Then we'll have 2 or 3 people helping her, you know, to dress people up. Set designer and the set makers. And we also have from the theater, the lighting, the stage hand, and the technical people who help us, and set builders. Because you know, for opera, you need to have so-called orchestra pit. Yeah, but in the theater where we perform our shows, there isn't one. Yeah, so we actually have to build the stage so that we can have the orchestra in front, and so our conductor will be able to see everyone on stage and plus the orchestra, and so we kind of create our own orchestra pit, and that means we have to actually build a stage, you know. So that process is also quite challenging, because you know, when we book the theater, we book for about a week. Yeah, and imagine 1 week booking, and then you have, say, 4 shows. So that means you only have 3 days before the show. And imagine you also need to have a dress rehearsal at least, right? So we have 1 or 2 days for us to actually do our tech rehearsal, to set up the stage, to do a run with all the singers and the musician. So it is extremely time constrained, a very tight schedule. Yeah, so once you go in, it's bum 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 all the way, you know, until the day of the show. Yeah.
Definitely sounds very hectic in that sense, like in this regard.
Yeah.
So how about like the publicity of your productions? Like, do you advertise using like newspapers or just posters or even social media?
Well, we are quite active on social media. We have a very active Facebook page managed by myself and also Mr. Ho, Ho's Nguyen. And sometimes we do engage some freelancers to help us do the postings and all that. We do have a freelance designer for our posters. So she designs even the social media postings, and plus the posters which we send out, the hard copies, and the program booklets and all that. But in terms of advertising budget, we don't really have one. We are a small company, we have no money, so sometimes we do invest a little bit in terms of boosting our post. Yeah, so we sometimes do that targeted boosting of the post. But other than that, we don't really have an advertising budget. But what we do get sometimes is we have free publicity on the radio through the community notice board. We submit in, and then they actually shout out on our programs or event. And the other one, which we are very grateful for the past 3 years at least, we have the Astro Radio on a kind of a sponsorship basis, where they give us a live promo shout out on the Astro Radio. So that is really helpful, and it happens on the mix and light channels. But of course, in return, we have to actually also provide tickets to Astro Radio for them to give out to listeners. Yeah. I think, Brian, I missed out something just now. You asked me about props, right? Yeah, I think I missed talking about that. Okay. Props is an interesting one, because props, we have to pay attention to the libretto, what is written by the composer and the librettist. Say, for example, the Magic Flute. There's so many things in there that we had to prepare, you know. And so the stage manager and including ourselves, producers, will assist, and we actually make most of the props ourselves. Yeah, we'll try to buy things that are similar, and then we'll mock it up or we'll paint it, and so we actually make the props ourselves, and the props can range from like kind of rather big pieces to very small ones. You know, there's a lot of hand props, and some could be like just a handkerchief or a piece of paper or a pen, you know, so things like that. So we do all that, and normally that happens also around 2 months before the show. Yeah.
All right. Yep. So, how about like you mentioned, you do provide tickets, like you do provide complimentary tickets to like the radio stations and such. But how about how do you guys manage your finances, like in terms of selling tickets, or do you guys even get sponsorship deals from like certain people as well? Like
Yes.
how is that happening?
There are grants available, but sadly, it's not very frequent. In the past, I remember we had one production where we got a grant from JKKN, Jabatan Kesenian dan Kebudayaan Negara. And then another one for Butterfly, we actually got a little bit of funding from the Japan Foundation. So all these grants you have to apply, and normally they cover at least part of our venue rental and some of the production costs. But most of the time is just a fraction, though we are still very, very grateful for it, but it's still just a fraction of it. But we had to depend largely on ticket sales. Yeah. So and ticket sales, because of the little advertising that we have, so sometimes you know, like example with the Astro Radio's help, you know, that we get a wider reach in terms of audience. But most of the time it's also family members, friends, you know, and through our network, the community, and people know of our production, and then, you know, they will come. I think we have fared pretty decently in our ticket sales. It depends on the production most of the time. Like some production, like Butterfly, for instance, is very popular. So we had almost no problems selling the tickets. But like for some lesser known operas, it's always a challenge. And you know, one thing about Malaysians, I don't know whether it's the same in Sabah, but they don't like to buy tickets in advance. They are very last minute, you know. So we are always left kind of anxious, you know, especially on the production week, praying every day to see whether tickets are moving or not. And sometimes it's always at the very last minute, and so it's always been a challenge for companies like us when we don't have major sponsors. Yeah. And so and if we don't sell enough tickets, most of the time we will have to fork out from our own pocket. Yeah. Yes.
All right. So yeah, moving on. So it has been shown that the KLCO has had a children's troupe. So how does the KLCO prepare them for future opportunities?
Yeah, actually we have this program called Opera for Kids. And then we started with Opera for Kids back in 2012. And then we later expanded it to include the teens, because the kids actually grew up and we had to not exclude them. And so we started the Opera for Teens workshop as well. The interesting thing about our program is that it's not a regular kind of like weekly thing. We only do it like 3 months before the actual production. Okay. Yeah, why is that? Because these kids will actually go through lessons every week, Saturdays, and then they will learn about the opera. They will learn about the composer. They will learn to sing one or two number from the opera itself, and then they actually get to be on stage with the other performers. Yeah, so it's really a special experience, I would say, and our hope is that you know, and it happened to me because as you kind of experience opera yourself, then you realize how amazing the art form is, and so hopefully with that we are able to cultivate some sort of what do you call it? A love or interest in the children, and hoping that in the future they will want to take up classical singing or learn about opera or take a major in opera studies and then eventually come back and sing for us, hopefully.
Fingers crossed then. So, in hopes of providing more employment for your members and vocalists in general, does the KLCO promote performance opportunities in rural communities outside of KL, whereby the reception may not be so ideal in comparison to urban areas?
Yes, actually we did try to bring our opera production out of KL, and we did that in 2017. We brought our French opera, La Fille de Régimon, a very nice and comical opera, but unfortunately the reception was not so good. We didn't sell many tickets, and after that we kind of refrained from doing that. And then instead what we did was in 2016, 2017, we had this festival called Opera Cool. Opera, K-U-L, cool, as two meanings, cool and Kuala Lumpur, opera cool. Yeah, so it was a collaboration with a mall in KL, a mall called Publica. Publica is actually an interesting mall. It is an art mall. So what happens is that they are a proponent of art, and they actually have a white box and a black box theater within their shopping mall compound. And inside the shopping mall itself also they have art pieces by artists and all that on show, so that indirectly they're also promoting and cultivating the love for arts. Yeah. And so this collaboration in conjunction with their Publica, they call it Publica Map Fest festival. So they allow us to use their space, the white box and the black box. And what we did was we ran a weekend of workshops, programs, and performances, and it is most of it is free for anyone, for the shoppers to come and participate. And we had things like, example, choral singing, and so opera chorus singing. And so we actually have families who join us and to sing a opera chorus number together with their kids. We had open rehearsals where we had Cecilia, our vocal director, rehearse with the principal singers, just part of our production, and then people get to watch the whole rehearsal process. And then we also work very closely with the Embassy of Italy. And in 2017, with the help of the embassy, we actually brought in a really renowned conductor from Italy, Maestro Nicoletta Conti. And she has worked with people like Luciano Pavarotti and all that. She is really amazing. And so she worked with our principal singers. And she also did masterclass for students. And in fact, she did a masterclass for the students in UPM. Yeah. And so as part of the festival, the whole UPM orchestra came and performed in Publica in an open courtyard. And then again, it's free for all the shoppers who came. Yeah.
All right. But like you mentioned earlier on, it was difficult teaching the language. How did that go with teaching like the random people that came by?
Oh yeah, actually, I think we chose the easier piece, of course. We chose Italian, and Italian is quite similar to our Malay language, so it was not that difficult for them to pick it up. But actually, it was quite amazing because I was pleasantly surprised. I thought, oh shucks, we take weeks and months to rehearse, and we expect the parents to come and sing, within like an hour. But they did it, and it was quite amazing, and because of course we posted all the scores and the text on the screen projected, and then they could read it off the projection. So that was really, really fun. Yeah.
That's good to hear then.
Yeah.
So how have the kids, before we move on, I would just like to remind everyone that if you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the Q&A section or in the YouTube comments. So going on, so how have the KLCO vocalists coped with COVID-19? What have the challenges been in organizing rehearsals and other sorts of meetings?
Yeah. Well, this pandemic is really impacting, I guess, not only KLCO but any other arts organization, not only in Malaysia but around the world. For us this year, we actually wanted to revive our Opera Cool Festival, after a 3 years hiatus, but then came the MCO, and so we had to defer it. And also this year we were planning to actually stage Carmen, which is a very popular opera, in October. But again, because of that, we have to tell our principal singers that we will defer it for a year. And so now we are doing it in next year, October instead. So as for the chorus, we tried to continue our rehearsals, yeah, because they were supposed to prepare a program for the opera cool. And we tried doing Zoom, but it didn't work. Yeah, it was really difficult. And so then we tried, okay, just someone singing and the rest listen, and that didn't work either. And then after that, we tried having them perform things through Zoom, and then we perform things for them through Zoom. And so we did many versions of trying to keep things going. Yeah. So it didn't really work. And then in the end, I guess we took a short break, but now we are actually back to the studio. So we have, what we did was we had some chorus member come into the studio to rehearse, and then some Zoom in. So that worked much better, because when you have someone singing in the studio, the people who are Zooming in, they could actually hear it much better, and they could follow. So they kind of take turns to do that now. And hopefully, soon enough, we will be able to like resume fully 100% back to the studio.
Definitely. Hopefully that happens much sooner than later.
Yeah.
So what are the KLCO's plans for the future with regards to the COVID-19 situation, and once the whole issue has been resolved?
Well, we are trying to be very positive about it, So in fact, during the MCO, we involved our principal singers. We did a series of programs, one of which was opera chit-chat, similar to something like this. That's what the JPO has been doing. So we invited members of our production team. We had the stage director, stage manager and all that. We had a chit-chat with them for, I think, about 8 sessions. Then thereafter, we actually invited our principal singers from our past production from 2017 until 2019. And then they came on Zoom, and then we talked about their experience in the production, and we did a bit of flashback, and there was a lot of good memories, And then now we are actually doing a campaign called Save My Opera. And Save My Opera basically is a call out and shout out to everyone to help Malaysian opera, and by donating. Yeah, and so we have set up a crowdfunding site on simplygiving.com, and also we have our principal singers post. They prepared some video clip of their short performance. They sing an aria or do just a piece or something like that. And we posted it on our social media platform. And every week we post like 2 or 3 postings and contribution from different principal singers. And from there, we actually got people donating to the funds. So we are still, we have actually set ourselves a target until year end to raise enough funds for our next production, because, like this year, we are not able to carry out a workshop. We are not able to actually have any productions. And we are also not able to open our studio for, usually we have people rent the studio for lessons. And we also have teachers who teach us at the studio. So all this cannot happen, you see. Yeah, so in place of that, with the Save My Opera campaign, we actually got people from all around the world, and of course in Malaysia as well, chipping in. Some donated 5 ringgit, some actually donated much more, and things like that. So I think what's important is that we want to remind people that we are still here, and then we do need help, and we just want to show them what we do. And so hopefully all these kind-hearted people out there will just chip in, and so far the fundraising effort has been pretty good. We're still on track, and so we are hoping to introduce more programs in the next coming weeks and months, so that to sustain that fundraising effort until year end.
Hopefully it goes well then. All the best of it, Danny. So, so before we move on to our Q&A section, the JPO does have a few questions for you. So with your experience in working with our country's youth, what can you suggest for the JPO and its aspiring musicians?
Well, okay, most teachers will say you have to practice. You have to continue to practice and do your best in your honing your art, right? So I would say also that be open-minded and try things. And like for myself, I still remember the day when I went for the audition to be a part of the Turandot chorus. So I didn't know what is Turandot. I didn't know what was opera, but then that opportunity actually opened up my eyes and, and actually brought me to where I am today, to be, a director and a founder of the Kuala Lumpur City Opera. So I would say to the folks out there, keep trying. You never know what you like, right? So try different things and try different experience, and then you'll find something that you're truly passionate about. Then you just need to kind of go for it. Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on the JPO and its activities?
Well, I've heard of JPO and teacher Yap Ling's effort through this many years, and it's actually great to be able to have a community orchestra and also to be doing a lot of outreach programs, something which I think KL City Opera can learn from. In fact, we would like to do more of that, but then, due to resource and that we were not able to do as much. But I think what JPO has been doing in terms of reaching out, especially to the rural areas and to help, those who are unfortunate, to be able to actually pick up an instrument and learn something, and then to help them pursue something that maybe they are passionate about. Yeah. So a lot of great effort, and definitely, I think, like I said, and genuinely, I think KLCO, we can learn a lot from JPO.
Well, thanks for your comments, and hopefully maybe next time we can collaborate with each other then.
Sure thing, yes.
So with that, I think we'll just move on. I think we'll have to move on to our Q&A section because we are receiving quite a few in the chat. So,
okay.
This is from an anonymous person. So from your experience, what is the normal perception of opera for most Malaysians?
Well, most Malaysian, the first thing is to say, wow, opera is sung in a foreign language. So what? I'm going to go there and I'm not going to understand a single thing. But actually, yes, it's sung in a foreign language. But what we do actually is we provide surtitles. Yeah. So if you go to our production, above the proscenium or below the proscenium of the stage, we actually provide the surtitles or translation of what is sung in both English and Chinese. Yeah, yeah, and actually that is one of the behind the scene work that we do, and it's really time consuming. It takes up a lot of time. We had to translate, and we had to get proofreaders to read it and to make sure that what is translated is correct. So a lot of effort in doing that. So no worries, when you come to an opera production, you will understand, you will have subtitles and things like that. I think the second misconception I would say is that people kind of think that it is long and boring. Well, not necessarily, because I think opera, okay, think about it this way, right? Opera is an art form that has survived for more than 400 years, right? For more than 400 years. And it is an art form which is, performed in most civilized I think most advanced, sorry, wrong word, most advanced nations. Yeah, every advanced nation, they would have an opera house, they would have their own opera company, and they would have a program of opera that runs through the year, right? So meaning it is an art form that is definitely of high standard, something that really receive the appreciation from many, right? So why can't Malaysian like us also enjoy this art form, right? All it takes is just a little bit of preparation. Yeah, of course, I think sometimes it can be quite overwhelming if you go into the theater without knowing anything about opera, and then you start watching, and you probably get lost and you get bored after like 10 minutes. But if you do a little bit of research or read the synopsis before you go in, and then I think when you listen to the music and you listen to the singing, it will transport you into, a different kind of experience, I would say. So definitely, forget about all this misconception, just give it a try, and I'm quite sure, I promise you, you will enjoy it. Yeah.
All right. So moving on. We have another person saying, wait, I think I'm missing one. Yep. Okay, found it. So this other person is saying, hi, Danny. Would you like to share with us about the history of opera in Malaysia?
Okay. So I have to say that my knowledge of the history of opera in Malaysia would probably be limited to the early 2000s. Yeah. Why? Because that's when I participated in Toronto. That was in 2003. And then the year after, I was in the Carmen production, and it's actually organized by Penang Arts Council. And they actually brought the production to KL and Penang. And at the time, I remember there was a big corporation that actually supported or funded or sponsored the production. And that was TaxCam, yeah, in Penang. I heard that prior to that, even in the 1980s or 90s, there were already many opera production in KL and also in Penang. Yeah, but after 2004, there were a few more, and in fact, there was another opera company called Malaysian Lyric Opera. It was started by the founder, Mr. Liao Xiaofa, the late Mr. Liao Xiaofa. He is also the founder of the Singapore Lyric Opera. Yeah, Mr. Liao, the late Mr. Liao, he was actually a Malaysian, but he has his business in Singapore, and he is also the kind of the founder and one of the directors of Singapore Lyric Opera. But he realized that, hey, something is wrong. Malaysia is really missing out on opera. And so he then started the Malaysian Lyric Opera Company back, I think, at the time, about probably 2004 or 2005. Yeah. But they did a few productions, including Tosca, The Merry Widow, Leha's Merry Widow. And then I think after that, because there was some sort of like barriers, in terms of getting approval for the DPKL approval and all that for the production. And I think they were planning to do La Boheme, and that didn't happen. And so after that, I'm not sure for what reason, but he kind of said, forget it. Okay, and then he kind of concentrated more on the Singapore Lyric Opera. And that was it. And there was no opera production, I think, from then to 2005 all the way until 2012. And that's when we started the Eat, Sing and Travel People. I started Eat, Sing and Travel People not because of opera, but more because of my book, my food book. But then one fine day in 2012, one of my vocal teacher, Dr. Michaela Bettanoli, she used to be in Malaysia, and then she got she went back to France. Actually, her husband actually got what do you call it, depatriated back to Paris, I think. And so she spent a few years there, and then later in 2012 she contacted me, and she wanted to come back to Malaysia to conduct some master classes. Yeah. So at the time I was kind of like free, and I said, oh, why not, come, and so helped her organize a master class. And you may know, in master classes, normally you have a student recital after, the master class, right? So we did a student recital, and then I think that was summer in July. And then it was a success. And then she wanted to come back again, so she came back in November, and then we did something else. And then we did a bridge version of an opera production. We did La Boheme, a bridge version. And then she came back again the following year, and we did Carmen. Yeah. So then around about 2014, 2015, then I thought, oh, wow, this is becoming serious. So I think we cannot continue to operate as a opera company under the Eat, Sing and Travel People banner, because it was a little bit difficult to convince sponsors or even the embassy and all that we are serious. And so in 2015, then we decided that, okay, I think now we're getting a little bit serious, and so why don't we form a proper company to manage opera in Malaysia. And so that's how Kuala Lumpur City Opera was born.
All right. So thanks for that. So moving on. So Danny, so there's another question. So
Sure.
Danny, So Danny, thanks for sharing, and hope the KLCO will continue to bring us all these amazing productions. So may I know what's the greatest challenge for you doing all this behind the works and doing production kind of work?
I think the greatest challenge is actually funding. You know, yeah, that is. In fact, I always tell myself that okay, we shouldn't rely on sponsorship. We shouldn't, we shouldn't be dependent on it, because it comes and go, right? If you have your production solely dependent on funding from government or grants and things like that, and when they don't have any funding, then that's it. You're going to be in trouble. So so what I try to do is to make sure that we do things in a low cost manner. Okay, so I guess the challenge is to manage the cost element. If you notice in the pictures, our orchestra is quite small. Yeah. Normally, an opera production would have, like, depending on whether it's a Mozart, a Puccini, or a Verdi, but it can be up to like 70 members or something like that, right? But for our production, we always have around 24, 25 members. Okay, how do we do that? So again, part of the challenge of trying to maintain costs, we actually source for reduction or reduce orchestration. So that way we are able to limit the number of musicians. So because that is a huge cost for the production, and we do pay our musicians, and we do pay our principal singers honorarium. So, but that is a big chunk of the cost, and so by doing that, we are able to minimize, one portion of it.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your responses. So sorry everyone, but we are coming to the end of tonight's broadcast. We would like to remind everyone that our JPO Family Program will be broadcasted twice a week until further notice. Join us next time with our next guest, who will be revealed at a later date. More details on this can be found on our Facebook page. A video recording of tonight's broadcast will also be available on the JPO YouTube channel, along with past webinars and the soon-to-be broadcasted interviews. So feel free to share the Zoom webinar registration link, or the JPO YouTube channel and the JPO Facebook page with your friends and family. For our YouTube audience, if you are enjoying our program, please feel free to show your support by pressing the like and subscribe button down below. So you guys have been an amazing audience. And yeah, so we from the JPO family wishes that everyone stays safe and healthy as we continue to face this crisis together. So I will now be leading the prayer to end tonight's program. So please pray in whatever faith you believe in regarding the COVID-19 pandemic. We pray that everyone in the world continues to stay strong in surviving through these difficult times, and that a solution to the virus will soon be found. We pray for everyone's well-being as we continue to hope that the spread of the virus will soon be stopped. We pray for the safety and well-being of everyone working as we enter a new month of this year. We pray for the continued safety and morale of the frontliners who are risking their lives so that they may continue to provide for those in need. So with that, thank you once again. Thank you, Danny. So good night, and we hope to see you all again next time. See you.
Thank you, Brian, and thank you, Yabling, for having me.
Thank you.